Hi, everyone. Welcome to Humans of Reliability. Today, I am excited to be chatting with Dennis, who joins us from Okta. But why don't I actually take a step back and let you introduce yourself and what you do?
Yeah, so my name's Dennis Henry. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm a member of the engineering architecture team here at Okta. And I focus mainly on reliability and resilience initiatives across the customer identity product unit.
Very cool. Let's just jump right into questions. I always try to do a little bit of research on each guest before I have them on. So, of course, I did a classic little creep of the LinkedIn. And one thing I noticed is that you have a top voice badge for servant leadership, which I actually haven't seen that badge before. So, I would love to know, what does servant leadership mean to you? What's that all about?
Yeah, so for the longest time in my career, I was in management. Started as like a low-level supervisor in my last company and rose up the ranks to being the chief operating officer. And then I moved to Auth0 at the time as an engineering manager and became a director at Auth0, obviously now a part of Okta. And one of my biggest mantras when I was in management was be a part of the team, not against the team. That you work for the team. You don't work for your manager. You work for the team. And I try to embody that even now as an individual contributor, by really working for others, serving others, and getting them what they need when they need it. I think it's hugely important and one of the most key kind of aspects of leadership in any organization.
Yeah, that's very cool. And I'm curious then what that looks like for you, maybe in the context of incident response and how that contributes to things like psychological safety or empowering your responders.
Yeah, so it really plays in by like acting and kind of practicing what I preach. It's showing that I am there to help others. It's showing that I am there to be a part of the process and that I'm not above any sort of policies or procedures, that I work with the team and more importantly, I work for our customers. And really trying to ensure that when incidents are happening that the team knows I'm not there to be forceful in any way with them. In fact, I strongly believe in a really good blameless culture. And thus far, I've been working closely with the organization to implement that. I've actually done a whole podcast with a different company about incident management and blameless, because I believe it's strongly needed and something that I think a lot of organizations get wrong. I used to get it wrong myself. I didn't understand what the hell blameless meant. I thought it meant don't talk about who did anything, when in reality it's talk about them, but talk about them in a collaborative way. Bring them to the table, work with them, and work through what issues have occurred.
Yeah, I think I was also initially skeptical when I heard about blameless. I was kind of like, what's the point? We got
Yeah.
to figure out what happened here. But I love that approach in incidents. I actually wrote a blog post about this somewhat recently about what do you do when, an executive or director level leader shows up in the incident? Because I think for a lot of people, that's viewed as like you've done something wrong, or you're there to be micromanaged, or like, uh-oh, should we have told them first? Like, immediately people almost have this adversarial point of view of like, we're in trouble now. But on both sides, both as a leader and as somebody who's in an incident with a leader available, if you change your mindset, that's your ticket because your leader is there. They've got the pull to unblock you. They have, broader context and awareness. If you find the right way to work with your senior leaders in incidents, and if your senior leaders understand that their role is to unblock and keep things moving and not to take over and become a bottleneck, it can be a really helpful thing. I think that's a huge part of having a good incident response culture versus like a really challenging one.
I tend to agree, though. I go a step further and typically ask leaders to not even be in incidents. I don't find their presence typically helpful. If we need them, we can pull them in. But most of the time, I find behavior shifts when there's someone with a big C-level title or VP title in there. I've been well known in my organization for asking those people very nicely to leave, when I see them join, just due to the fact that I want the process to be something that is done in a very safe way, and you tend to act differently when there is someone of authority, quote unquote, in the room. Incidents should be everyone's on an equal playing ground, and there's one person who's Caesar for a day, and that could be a low level responder who's incident commander that day. That could be anyone, and that person's in charge, not someone with a fancy title.
Totally agree. If your incident response program is built properly, you should not need executives getting involved because it's already infused in the process. You're already aligned on what should be done. But I do want to switch gears a little bit because I saw something interesting on your LinkedIn as well about a master's program around human factors. And my first thought was, what are human factors? So I'd love to hear about that, your studies in that area, what it means, and what drew you to that.
I was really interested in incident response for a while now, and it's been a big thing for me. But what I realized was that incident response is so much more than just responding to incidents. And I wanted to understand the real study of how incidents happen and all of that. So what I did was I did some research and kind of found and stumbled along the career of John Allspaw, who is kind of a father of the incident management space. Truly, he was a CTO of Etsy back in the day, and has done countless talks about human factors and incident management and reliability and resilience engineering. And he did a master's in human factors and strongly spoke to the connection between human factors and incident management. But it's basically the study of failure. It's a study of how people, processes, procedures fail, and how to architect things to be more resilient. There's a lot of study of human cognition, physiology, psychology, adaptation, and all how all those things interplay when failure, quote unquote, occurs. And it's been fascinating. I'm 4 classes in of a 10 class master's program, and so far I've been truly blown away by the content, and just loving it.
Yeah, that sounds wildly fascinating. I think Niall Murphy did a talk along those lines as well at an SRECon a couple years ago when I
Mhm.
watched it. It was so fascinating. He and I actually had a whole conversation kind of about like the art and the science and the human aspects versus technical aspects or how they all loop in together when it comes to instant response for the Software Daily podcast a while ago. And I think that that side of instant response is so fascinating. It's also a big reason that I wanted to do this series is like getting to know the people and how they view the industry, and kind of have those conversations outside of just what are the phases of an incident and frameworks and all of that. It's like, how do you feel? Why do you like it? Like, what's cool to you about this work? So that's really fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing I saw, so you've had you've operated at a lot of different levels of leadership. You mentioned you're in an IC role at the moment. You've held a COO role before. How has that shaped your perspective on incidents and this type of work? And I guess just like what would you say to people about, I guess, oscillating? I'm making up this question as I go, as you can tell, because it's come to mind, like between leadership roles at different levels and IC work. Do you think that's something that people should try in their career?
I think what people need to understand is that leadership can be displayed in many different ways. I look at what I'm doing now still as a lot of leadership. I'm leading people just now in a different capacity. I'm leading them technically. I'm leading them architecturally. I'm leading them in a thought leadership situation now, rather than managing people day to day. And I made the choice because at the end of the day, when you get to a certain level, especially in an organization of Okta's size, I've always fancied myself a hybrid leader where I'm both operating as an IC, but also as a manager. But that becomes really hard to do when you're getting up to that senior director, VP level of a very large organization. When I worked for the company was called Hostime, and I was the chief operating officer, it was a company of around 100 people. And you're expected to wear multiple hats at a company of that size. But to truly lead at an exceptional level, at a very high level in an organization as a manager, you really need to focus on management. Same thing as being an individual contributor. Like if you want to lead technically, you want to lead in thought leadership, it's really important that you do so as a individual contributor. And when I weighed dropping managing people versus dropping the technical leadership side and coding and building things and experiencing all of that, the choice was obvious for me. It was definitely always going to be this thought of going into just being an IC and really flexing that out. But there is a lot of people who have oscillated between management and IC. Most of the architects in Okta have been leaders in different organizations before they were now architects and ICs at Okta, and that's completely normal. And I think it should be really demystified. We have a great laddering system, career ladder at Okta, where ICs have just the same amount of kind of growth that they can have and be in executive leadership as an IC, same as managers. We're members of our engineering leadership team at the architect level. Like there, you still have that ability to lead with purpose as an IC, and that's something that I just love that I'm still able to do.
I love that. Yeah. I also have gone between leadership roles, IC roles, and back. I'm back on the leadership side now, but for the past couple years, I had no direct reports. And I think that this whole idea that to move up means collecting more and more levels of direct reports is such an anti pattern. And, you know, IC roles can, like you said, can still be in many ways leadership roles, and that distinction between being a leader and a manager. When you're someone who's a leader, even if you don't have people reporting directly to you, you don't stop leading, you know?
Mm-mm.
It's just
No, I
happy.
hate that concept of fiefdom building. I was terrible at it. I'm not a very good politician. I speak what I think, and I do that often. And that can be really difficult when you're in a people management position. But as an IC, I really have found a good groove to be in. And I love it. I don't think anyone should feel like they have to go into managing people to be successful in their career and grow in their career. I think all organizations should find a way to maximize their individual contributor talents.
Definitely. And there are many people who are brilliant individual contributors who are terrible managers because it's not the
Yeah.
type of work that is exciting to them. And yeah, you shouldn't hit a ceiling as an IC just because you don't have reports. I think that's so silly. So I love
Yeah.
that. I have one more question, and it is completely unrelated to work. But I saw that you, I believe, are based in Orlando.
Mhm.
Yep. And you've been a Floridian for some time, it looks like. Did you grow up in Florida or have you always been there?
Born and raised. I've never lived more than around 150 miles from the place that I was born. So very small radius of being in Florida.
Okay. I would like to know what is the best thing about living in Florida? Maybe other than the weather, because that seems kind of obvious. I feel like the weather's really nice.
Yeah, the weather is definitely a good thing. The beach is somewhat nice. I gotta say, it's got to be the diversity, though. I grew up in a very small town that was not very diverse, and I didn't really see much outside of that when I was growing up. But I came to college at University of Central Florida here in Orlando, and just the amount of diversity that I was able to experience in just this one little city has been amazing. And you can go down to Miami and experience wonderful diversity and the world of Hispanic culture that exists down there. You can go up to Gainesville, you can go up to Jacksonville, you can go across to Tampa. There's a lot of wonderful communities in this state. We're not all Florida man. I mean, we are, but we aren't. We do very much value our culture around here. There's a flourishing LGBTQ scene, especially here in Orlando, that I'm lucky to be a part of and experience all of what Orlando has to offer. So yeah, I can't say I love Florida as much as I used to when I was younger and more naive to its worse aspects. But I still love being here. It's where obviously my family is, and that's truly important too.
Totally. Yeah. Diversity is so huge and so exciting to be around. I think where we live. So I live in Ottawa, Canada,
Hmm.
and I have a almost 7-year old. And that's something that for us is so important too, for him to grow up around a lot of different people and cultures and experiences. And Ottawa's really great for that because it's Canada's capital. So you get like most people who live here, I don't think are really from here. It's you get people from all over, and it just makes it so much more interesting.
So much more interesting. I could not live in a place that lacked diversity at this point in my life. I love being able to choose between Ethiopian, Mongolian, Chinese, Mexican, American, Italian. No matter what kind of food I want, I can experience it in just this one city, and that's truly a unique aspect and something that I value more than anything else is being around people that don't look like me. Because I'm a very white cisgender heterosexual male, and I want to be around people that are different and interesting and vibrant, and I can do that here, and I love that.
Yeah, that's great. I thought about that with I also grew up in a fairly small town, definitely lacked diversity. And I think of all the conversations I don't have to have with my kid because
Yeah,
nothing is unusual for him. Like he doesn't have that like the first time I met a person of this identity. Like he just people,
yeah,
people, man.
yeah.
He's unfazed by all of it.
It's truly important too in the workplace, and is something I lead what's called the Ally Collective here at Okta, and it's a group of people that are not really in a given underprivileged group or anything like that, but want to learn more and want to really practice allyship. Because allyship is an action. It's not a label that you give yourself. So it's a really key thing, and being a member of so many communities and learning from them and growing through them is critical, both in and out of work.
Amazing. Well, Dennis, it has been such a pleasure chatting with you. I'm glad we got to do this. I think I can hear my kid creeping up the stairs. He's on summer vacation, and it is a miracle that we got through this with no interruptions. So we'll quit while we're ahead. Thank you again. It has been an absolute pleasure. And yeah, look forward to more chats in the future.
Yeah, you have a great rest of your day, Ashley.
You too.